Candice.
Hi, Chris.
How are you doing today?
I'm doing okay. Yourself?
Pretty good. I'm excited to be here in the kind of remodeled studio at the Center for Innovation and Teaching and Learning. They've added some extra bells and whistles and some new lighting, so it might look a little bit different from our previous podcast.
Yeah, it does look quite a bit differently.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
I am doing well. Like I said earlier, it is February, though. Do you know what's special about February?
Tell me.
Well, it is Black History Month, and
Yes.
it is the 100th anniversary of Black History Month.
Oh, I did not know that.
Yes, we're celebrating 100 years. So for those that are listening, if this is being, if you're not familiar with Black History Month, go ahead and educate yourself about Black history, because Black history is all, American history, and just, learn something. Educate yourself about what's happening with, Black American and stuff like that. So,
Yeah, fantastic. Thanks for telling us about that. I want to talk today. We haven't had a chance to do just one-on-one episode in a while.
I know.
You'll notice there's no guest at the table. It's just the two of us. And we're going to talk today about something that I wrote last week. And it was an article that I wrote on Substack that was called Leading Through Our Fractures.
Yes.
And I was, normally when I put something out on Substack, I watch the views come in. Every once in a while, I get a couple comments. It sometimes feels like it's just,
empty,
an empty void that I'm writing into. And then I got a notification that I got a comment, and it was from you. I know. I never, ever even read your messages. So we decided, since something that I wrote piqued your interest, and it was about leadership, that we'd get in the studio today and talk a little bit about it. So let me give a little bit of background on what I wrote and what I mean by leading through our fractures. And it's really this idea that we all have our imperfections. We all have our flaws. Even the leaders high up in organizations, they have their challenge, and they have their traumas, and they have their things that are just sometimes hidden in the background. And what I wrote in the article is essentially that we need to embrace those imperfections and those challenges and those traumas, and in some way, shape, or form, reveal those to the people that we're leading on our teams, because it helps us makes us more human and more whole in their eyes, and allows us to connect at a deeper level. And it's as I was writing it and doing a little research to see, has anyone talked about this idea before? I knew it probably wasn't an original idea. Of course. There's very few original ideas out there. I came across this Japanese concept, and it's called kintsugi. Yeah. And that's Japanese for golden repair. And it's this art method where they'll take a broken piece of pottery and put it back together, but they use gold in the veins of the fractures. Yes. And it's this idea that it is more beautiful after being repaired, and the fractures are what make it beautiful. And it's this, evidently comes from the Japanese concept of wabi-sabi, which is the embrace of imperfection. So that was the gist of the article. I really want to know what caught your interest, because you've never ever, I've been writing for years, and you've never mentioned a thing about one of my writings. So what piqued your interest? I'm curious. Well, first, I usually don't read most of your articles, but I did read this one. So, it piqued my interest because it resonated a lot with me. First, because I realize that a lot of my flaws are really kind of what make me a beautiful person. So it's part of the things that make me me. And when I realized that, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I am the art that is that beautiful piece. I am those golden pieces. And so I was like, hello, this is exactly what we should be doing in my professional life, in my personal life. That is what we should be doing. And it's a matter of how you demonstrate that to others is the most important part. And so I think there's art to how you demonstrate that to others. And that piece is more of how you can lead. And so I know that not everyone knows how you show those flaws or how you can demonstrate that. And I think that piece is the part that makes you a really good leader, because there is a way to do that well, and there's a way to not do that so well. So I think that
I welcome the mistakes that I've come to grips with mistakes that I've had, and I'm never going to be diminished by the mistakes that I've made. I don't let people tear me down because of them. Of those missteps. However, because of that self-awareness, I know what I can share with other people and what I cannot share, and how to share it in those type of ways.
Yeah, so it's a fine line, right? Because maybe it's not a fine line. Maybe it's this like really giant gray area in the middle of all of this. Because I think we are, generally speaking, given leadership positions, increasing leadership positions because we are successful previously, right? And making mistakes and falling down sometimes feels like the opposite of success. So like, how does that work? Like, how are you honest about those mistakes that you made without getting in the way of your climbing of whatever ladder you're trying to climb?
You know the Magic School Bus, Miss Frizzle, from that quote that she says, where you have to like take chances, make mistakes, get messy. Yeah. Like you have to do that in order to learn. It's just a matter of learning how to do that in the most investigation. Like that's what we do here in higher ed. We have to learn. We have to take chances. We have to investigate. Yeah. It's just a matter of how do you do that in a methodology, like in a way that, is safe and a way that is, sound without, not messing things up. So it's like, of course, we all have to learn what are those limits. And so now it's like, as you do leadership, how do you find the method that works for you? And so. Yeah.
So like for you, where is that? How do you like navigate that line between, I think what I would say is authentic, vulnerable leader and hot mess?
So right? I think the way that I've navigated it is, one, I've seen it demonstrated personally in front of me. I've seen hot mess demonstrated, and I did not want to repeat what that was. So I've seen that and I went, oh, that was a train wreck. I cannot let that happen. I cannot demonstrate it that way. Yeah. So I've seen people make mistakes and I go, whew, that cannot be me. Yeah. So I've seen it done poorly and don't want that to happen.
Yeah, you almost, when you see that in action, when you see like the hot mess side of it, you're like, oh, they really shouldn't be saying that right now. Yes. Like you just know it inside that like, okay, they've shared too much about themselves.
Yes, and you can take note of that and you go, okay, duly noted. This is something that you can definitely learn from. And I know you can't necessarily take it back. However, those are things that you have to move forward with. I also know that when I have shared enough, people are able to then afterwards give me feedback on what they've learned from me sharing. Yeah. They will give me immediate feedback going, thank you so much for letting me know that you went through this. I appreciate it that you told me this. Right after I've shared something, they're like, oh, thank you after the meeting. Oh, I can't believe that you told me that. I now am able to do X, Y, Z because you told me this. Or I feel so much more able to apply for this job because you said that you did that X after that. And so when I get that type of feedback, I know that I've moved in the right direction or I've shared the right amount of information at that time.
Yeah. How does it interact? How does this idea of sort of being authentic with your fractures, with the imperfections, with your mistakes, how does that interact for you with empathy? Because, when I think of empathy, it's about putting myself in the place with the person that is going through a particular challenge or something. It's not necessarily about me saying, oh, I went through that too. And so how did those two things interact in your mind?
I mean, I think it's more of a tough question because I really don't. I mean, I always want to say I can't necessarily put myself in someone else's shoes because I have not lived their experiences. So all I can do is try to listen first to their, I always ask them like, oh, okay, let me hear more about what it is that you've experienced versus trying to go, oh, of course, I know exactly what you've experienced, because I never can understand it is what they've experienced. So empathy, I really think, is more of I ask more questions and try to listen before I try to put my feelings onto what they are feeling. So
yeah, I think the way I view that is if I've been open with my struggles and my challenges with my team or in other leadership capacities, I think someone's going to feel my empathy more in when it comes to time. It's not about me trying to like one up them with, this is what happened to me too, but they know that I have had struggles, so that even if it's not the same struggle, I know what challenge feels like, and I know what, being down about something feels like, or being traumatized about something feels like. I think that allows me to be more authentically empathetic with them.
Yeah, I never want to do a comparison of who has it worse.
Oh no, that's always bad, right? Yeah, we've known people like that where they just
let me tell you what I've been
always
through.
have that. They always have that one up story for sure.
Yeah, I will say that there are lots of other comparisons that I wanted to talk about in terms of the fractures, but there was one thing that when I thought about fractures, that is that need of being perfectionism that comes out. And that was something that I wouldn't say I'm a perfectionist, but I am a Virgo. And so I do have this need and tendency to kind of like things a certain way.
Yeah. And
so not that I'm very detail oriented, but I do like things to be done in a certain manner. And when
You're
they're not
particular.
Yes. And when they're not done in that fashion, if people can't do it in the way that I like it, I will do it I'll do it myself. And, it's like when team projects happen. If you're not doing it that way, I'll just go ahead and take care of it myself and then, put your name on it later or something like that. But I've learned that sometimes I have to be able to let go. And so when this happened, or when I read about the fractures and stuff like that, I was like, wow, sometimes you just have to. It can't always be perfect. Sometimes there's going to be things that are imperfect, and that's okay. Yep. And I learned that that's okay. And it took me a long time to come to grips with that, because I always wanted to be liked. And that is really hard when you want to be liked and you can't meet at people's expectations. And you're like, oh, I can't be liked if I'm not hitting all these marks. Yep. And so if I'm not perfect, then I can't be liked. And then I have these cracks and I'm not perfect. And so that's an issue.
Oh, amen. Amen. Because as we were preparing for this episode, I was thinking about okay, Chris, what are your fractures? What are the things that really get in your way if you're not real about them and if you don't admit them? And one of those things, and it's something that I've carried my entire life, is when I was young, I was not the kid who got picked for things. I was not the kid who was popular. I was not. I was this nerdy little skinny kid. I didn't get the girls. I didn't get any of that. So I don't even look back in sympathy on my former self, but it's those things stay with you over time.
Yeah.
And it all through my the early part of my professional career up until probably not too long ago, I was driven by that need to be liked, right? And it was to be the one that everyone said, oh, he's doing a great job. Mm-hmm. And I didn't ever want to admit that I didn't know something or I wasn't expert at something, because then I wouldn't be picked. And those things, even stuff from our childhood gets in our way.
Does.
I'm 54 years old and it still gets in my way sometimes.
And I feel even though I was the one that got picked, I was student body president, or I was popular, or I was on the cover of all these things, I felt like I was going to fall down. What happens when I'm not on top? I'm like, oh, what happened? I was just like, oh no. And so I was like, this is not good. So when you go to a larger school and you're not super popular anymore, what happens? And I was like, no, what happens? So that was and so the reason why I mentioned that, it reminded me of a story that I felt similar to the fracture, and it kind of had a similar story. So you're familiar with the emptying your cup reference?
Yeah, I've heard you talk about that before. Let's let our listeners in on that.
So I'll go ahead and share kind of the story in case people aren't familiar with it. So there was a master, and he received a university professor, and the university professor came to inquire about Zen. And from the start of the conversation, it was obvious to the master that the professor was more interested in learning, displaying how much he knew rather than learning about Zen. So the master invited the professor to sit down for tea, and he started to pour the visitor's cup full. And the professor said, the cup is full, no more will go in. And the master said, like this cup, you're full of your own opinions and speculations. How can I show you Zen unless you first empty your cup? And so the reason why I'm sharing this is that sometimes the professor was not ready to let go of control. He really wasn't accepting of like all of the like outcomes and things like that. But you really kind of have to be able to open up and be receptive to new ideas and be able to learn and open up. And so I really feel like there was like this tie of like being able to release control and relinquish and being able to unburden yourself of like those ingrained beliefs and other things. And so I felt like there's this tie.
You need to pour those things out, and at least you're pouring them out in acknowledgement, I think. Like to me, it's these things may still sit inside me.
Oh, of course.
Right. And they will always sit inside me. They're part of who I am. Right. The fractures don't go away.
Of course.
But the acknowledgement of them allows you to be in the driver's seat on how you use them and how they control you. Because if you push them down, they will control you in ways that you don't even know. Like, because you're not paying attention to them. So that, like, going back to the, pick me, I didn't get picked. Like, I'll see that coming up in the back of my brain going, oh, I want to be the one that wins here. And like, oh, wait, why am I feeling that right now? Is it important that I win here? And sometimes it is. Or am I just feeling insecure and that's why I need to win? And if I recognize the insecurity, I can go, you know what? It's okay for someone else to win here today.
Right. Because we all have our own like competitiveness or biases or other things that we just like that compel us. But we still want to think critically and think like have our own rationale about why we do things and stuff. So that's really important. Yeah.
Yeah. What's another fracture that you've experienced that sort of maybe gets in your way or you need to be transparent with those you lead about so that they understand why you are the way you are?
Obviously we're talking about being open and vulnerable. So that's not really a fracture, but I think the way that I demonstrate that, the way that I demonstrate it is going to be more, I think that's more of the way that I can talk about. So I think I'm trying to provide more of an example of how I've learned how to do that properly versus just like, oh, I've modeled it or I've seen it modeled. So let me give an example of how I've demonstrated it in a way that is elegant versus just like, oh, I'm just doing it well. How have you demonstrated your vulnerability to your team?
I think it's like I'll go back to maybe another one of my fractures that I identified. And that's when I first started out as a professional, I was a developer, web designer. And my boss that I had was I'm convinced she was deathly afraid of not feeling significant.
Oh, okay.
And so whenever someone would give me credit for the work that we were doing, she always found a way to not give me the credit. She always found a way to take the credit and diminish what those on her team were actually contributing to it. So I have this like fracture of I never got credit for what I was actually doing. It wasn't like an insecurity thing. I was actually being successful. So I have this now, like, to be open about the idea that like credit is really important to me.
Okay.
So I want to get credit when I deserve it. I also then that articulates out in my team as I am always giving credit to everybody that deserves it, because because of that it's, I don't want to overuse the word trauma, but like it was kind of traumatic that like every time somebody tried to give me credit, she would sort of slap me down. And that has turned around, and like I'm a big credit giver. Like I love shouting people out and saying, so I think that's one way that it's that fracture articulates itself into me being a better leader.
What would you say is the opposite of vulnerability?
I think it's like just self-protection. It's not even a lack of openness, but it's a self-protection, because vulnerability is, it's revealing your soft underbelly. Like that's that's the essence of it. And when you give that information to somebody, they can use it against you, right? If they can't use it against you, it's not vulnerability.
Right.
And so I think people are scared of being vulnerable because that vulnerability is used against them. That piece of information is used against them. And there's so many people out in the professional world that have had such bad experiences where they've been real about something. They might be real about a mental health struggle that they're having. They might be real about a mistake they made, and they get their hand slapped for it, or they have negative job repercussions as a result of being vulnerable. So like it is the opposite of that is self-protection.
Right. And so I wouldn't say it's a fracture, but I will say that people feel very, very open with me often, whether it be professionally or not professionally. And people have told me this, like, they meet me for the first time, like on an airplane or whatever, and there's like, oh my God, Candice, I've told you my innermost secrets, and I've only known you for like 2 hours. And I'm like, okay, whatever. I've never even told my best friend that. I'm like, whatever. I'm not going to tell anybody this. Like I just met you. Okay, whatever. I'm like, I don't know why you're telling me this. That's great. Yeah. And I feel like that is I don't know why people feel so open and sharing with me, but I feel like that sometimes is a fracture in my professional work environment, because when people can share that much information with me professionally, it takes this barrier of me being like, whether it be their supervisor or something else, that they've given me so much information that line of like professional to not professional becomes like very hard to like draw, because it's like, you gave me so much information where I'm like, I know your entire life story, and now I'm like, okay, something happened, and I'm just like,
boundaries are really important, especially when you're the leader.
Yes. I mean, I know how to set them, but I'm like, No,
but when they don't, because so there's a challenge there. Yes. There's a real challenge there as a leader. And I want to dive into that a little bit, because if someone comes and just spills their entire life to you and you accept it all without boundary, that can create a connection from them to you that actually isn't real, right? It's a perceived connection. And I want the people that work for me to trust me. Absolutely. Like without fail, that they can come to me if they really, even if they just need life advice, like come to me. But you have to be really careful of being, I think, explicit with where the boundaries are, because if you don't, it's like I've had employees in the past that get too attached, and it's not like there's a friendship line. There are lines that have to be drawn when you're a leader. And so this leading through our fractures and sort of admitting our fractures and also accepting the fractures of others isn't a free for all. And that's the thing that I think is, I don't know that there's a black and white piece of advice on how you do that.
Isn't,
but you have to be aware of these things. And I talk about this in the article, like the sharing of vulnerability is the thing that creates real connection. Connection in professional world is different than connection in personal world. Exactly. And it is really hard to slip over the line and get into dangerous places.
Because you're like, oh, this is a very friendly conversation. And then you're like, okay, this got a little So.
Yeah, and you also have to be aware that that person may have, at some point be like in a performance management process with you, and if you've gotten too friendly with them and too much, they become too dependent on you, like psychologically. Exactly. It's just not a great place healthy. For you to be in.
It's not. So exactly.
Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to bring up today is this book called Positive Intelligence.
Oh, okay.
And I didn't talk about that in the article, but I think it's related to this because it's written by an author, Shirzad Chamine.
Okay.
And he talks about us all having saboteurs inside us. So psychological saboteurs. Yep. And I think there are 7 saboteurs. There's a judge, like this internal judge, and the judge that we judge others with and ourselves. And then these 7 saboteurs. And the saboteurs are things that he goes back to like childhood that, I talked about not being picked. And so, and these saboteurs, if we don't recognize them and control them and be intentional about, they will control us. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about there's an assessment that you can take as a part of the book. And it tells you based on the assessment, which of the saboteurs are highest for yours. And my highest one is restlessness. And that
tracks.
Yeah. And I've been trying to think where was the fracture that sort of caused that? Where was the challenge? Where was the, what didn't I get that caused me to be so restless? And I think back and I'm going to say this, even though I know my mother's like our biggest podcast fan and she might not take this well, but I'm going to say it anyways. But we didn't really have a ton of experiences as kids. Like we had a good childhood. We were well cared for. But we pretty much just hung out in the house in our neighborhood and everything. We didn't go on trips. We didn't do all this kind of stuff. And I really think that my restlessness comes from the fact that I wasn't overstimulated as a kid. Aww. And now I want to do everything. And so I think that's an example of like just acknowledging that, but that restlessness impacts my professional life. I can, our team will be humming along just fine. I'll be like, I want to change that.
They're just like,
and the team's like, what? Chris, what the hell? Like, why are you changing this? It's working. And I have to think, I go, oh, that's my restlessness, right? That's that need for change, that need for new things is inside me and like never disappears. But I need to know, are we making this change for the right reason? Or am I making it just because I'm bored? Right.
And that's why it's great to have other people around you that challenge those things versus people that just go with the flow.
Yeah, like what? Like, Chris, what? So, So, any other comments that you want to kind of bring into the conversation today?
No,
this has been kind of a freewheeling conversation.
It definitely
for us.
has. Yeah. I mean, I will say the only other comment that I added to the article was because I quoted a popular movie quote, song lyric quote, but I know that you didn't watch that movie, so I won't bring up the music quote that I brought up.
No, I wanted to bring that up because when you in your comment you mentioned this song "What It Sounds Like," and I had to look the song up because those of you who follow me on social media may have seen that I made it about 15 minutes into K-pop Demon Hunters before giving up on it. Candice, however, is this huge K-pop fan. So,
I am. And so
tell me about this song. And if you want to sing, sing some bars too.
I'm not going to sing the song, but
if you want to hear Candice sing, just check her out on TikTok.
Yes, you can check me out on TikTok. So yeah, I love karaoke, but there's a part of the song where it says, "We broke into a million pieces and we can't go back." We're seeing all the beauty in the broken glass. The scars are part of me, darkness and harmony. My Voice Without the Lies, this is what it sounds like. And so it really kind of talks about how things are shattered and are already going into millions of pieces, but because they kind of come together, they can harmonize and be one. And it's beautiful melodies that are put together, but it really talks about, fractures and then coming together as one. And so it kind of resonated with me that there can be beautifulness happening into all those pieces. So.
Thank you for sharing that. I did like the song, even if I didn't really like the movie. It's just not my. It's just not my thing.
It's okay.
So I think that's a really beautiful way of sort of wrapping up today, and just this idea that when we're embracing and acknowledging these things that are have been difficult for us in the past, it makes us appear more whole in front of the people that we are leading. It is more beautiful. And it allows other people to be more authentic in front of us. So I think that is the whole gist of why I wrote this article and why it had been like floating around in my head for about 6 months. And I finally kind of sat down and put it to not paper, but
electronic,
digital paper. And so thank you for your comment on it.
And I'll probably watch, read more of your articles now.
Yeah. Fantastic. I'd love that. And if anyone wants to read any of those, it's at thinkfeellead.substack.com. I will put the link in the show notes. But thank you so much for having this conversation today, because it was really fun to dive into a topic that had been floating around in my head for a while.
Awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Thanks, Candice.